What is up guys, it's your boy Gunsoww and welcome back to an old-fashioned tutorial without me showing my face, and mostly because I forgot to charge my camera. But anyways, today I'm gonna show you guys some of the basics of making house Phonk, because everyone is doing it nowadays and it do go hard, I'm not gonna lie. So I may as well show you guys how to do it. Now, it's actually really simple. The only things you need are drums, hard-hitting drums, maybe a melody, like a sample, or you can, just use cowbells, and maybe a vocal if you want to. You don't necessarily have to use it, and that's about it. Now for the drums, I'm going to be using my Phonk kit, which should still be up on my website, but I'm also going to be using the XXL kit for the cowbell because I kind of forgot to include it in the Phonk kit like a dumbass. But it happens. Now, for the master, to make it sound more rugged, more kind of vintage in a way, I am using a master preset, which you can also find in the Phonk kit, which basically has a soft clipper just to make it hit harder, and then we have the degrader from Clevgrand just to make it sound a bit more, degraded. And I guess this is like the main thing on the master, to make it sound vintage. But then again, if you don't have this plugin, you can use the other preset in the presets folder for FL Studio or Ableton, and this is with stock plugins to kind of emulate the vintage sound. So for the melodies, I will be using a sample, but I'm also going to be using some cowbells just because cowbells are nice and they're kind of a must-have in Phonk, I guess. And the sample sounds like this. And I'm only going to be using half of it, and also maybe chopping it up a bit just so it sounds a bit more house-ish. I don't know, we'll see. And as for the vocals, it's a simple to use vocal. It doesn't really have a lot of background melodies. It doesn't have a lot of background things that could interfere with the other things that I'm going to be using. So hopefully it's going to sound just fine. And as for the drums, well, I do want to have a hard hitting kick. So maybe something like this. For the snare, something not necessarily big, like in a house way, but something that could work well with a kick. So maybe the impact of this snare combined with maybe this one. We'll see. So first of all, let's make sure our sample is synchronized to the beat. And I'm also going to be using 115 BPM because it's house-ish enough, but it's not like too fast. Okay, so back to the melody. I am going to chop it in half, as I said. So I need to find the point where it starts the loop, basically, which should be right here. And if I were to play it now, perfect loop. So I'm just gonna make it unique as a sample and now stretch to 4 bars and reset the pitch. And I'm also gonna be pitching it down by 3 semitones. And also let's make sure the vocals work as well. These seem to be twice as long, so I'm just going to be pitching them to 4 bars and then enable the stretching, go all the way up to 8 bars and maybe cutting it in half so I can, I don't know, play with it more, and let's see. So currently it's kind of fighting with the actual melody, so I am going to pitch it down a bit, but then again it also sounds a bit better pitched down, so I don't really mind it. So I'm gonna chop this even more. I just want to get rid of the second part because the melody is a bit more prominent in the second part, and it does sound like it's conflicting with the main melody, but the vocals work actually pretty well with the melody. So I'm just gonna do some slight chopping just to kind of give it a bit of a rhythm, so it's not gonna sound like it's repeating the same thing over and over. So in this case we can just do this. And now I'm just gonna EQ them real quick so we get rid of the bass frequencies and some other frequencies. I'm also maybe gonna make it mono, not sure, we'll see. But also let's EQ the melody as well, which is basically the same thing as the vocals, getting rid of the bass because we're gonna add an 808, and the kick, we don't want them to clash too much. This sounds perfect. Now let's make the actual drums. So I'm just gonna replace these with my own. I think I'm gonna choose this kick and just play with the length and then play with the out, so we get rid of some of those vinyl-esque sounds. Also disable the loop points, and also just make it, you know, 4 bars. So it's 4 steps and velocity all the way up. And now for the snare, let's start with just 1. And I'm just gonna piano roll it, max velocity, increase the length of the note so it's easier to grab, Control A, shift click to drag it. And now... And also let's try with the second snare as well, just to kind of fill in some, you know, frequencies and make it seem a bit bigger, I guess. However, with this one, I'm gonna increase the out, so it's just like the impact of the snare and not like the actual trail, I guess, that we need from this one. And now if we copy and paste them, it does sound a bit bigger. While we're at it, I'm gonna add a hi-hat in between the hits, you know, typical house rhythm, I guess. Let's start with this one and just place it right in between all of these hits. Also disable the loop points. And I'm also going to be using an open hat for basically every single kick hit. So, you know, it sounds house-ish, I guess. Also loop points. Although I am gonna add a slight variation in the hi-hats, and I'm gonna make it hit every time the first snare hits in like a bar. But now, the fun part, the 808. So you kind of want to have like a big 808, like a rumbly 808, and it's gonna hit every time the kick hits. Just like a... You know what I mean? So something like this one, or like this one. But I'm gonna start with this one. I'm gonna do the classic thing that you do with the envelope, just enable it and drag all of these like this. This is gonna give us full control over the length of the 808, and it's gonna start when we press it, and then it's gonna stop when we lift our finger from either the MIDI keyboard or the keyboard, you know. And also make sure cut self is enabled. So just copy the kicks and paste them right here. And then go into the piano roll of the 808, add a note at the very end, basically the 5th bar, select all of them and then press Control L. And now remove the last one. So now you get it. So let's see how this sounds like so far. Although it doesn't sound quite right, because while we're practically done with everything, we still need something to glue it together. In this case, it's gonna be sidechaining. Now, you could either do it by, you know, using P controller and then doing like a classic sidechain that the kick affects everything else, or you could use a plugin instead, like Kickstart or many other, you know, sidechaining plugins. I am gonna start with Kickstart just to see how, you know, everything sounds like when the volume is ducking, so I'm just gonna add it real quick and see how it sounds like. Now I'm gonna add it to the vocals as well by just doing the save preset as quick tip. You can just simply get something and then drag it over to whatever you need it. But I'm also gonna do it on the 808. Although I am gonna change the values on some of these, so on the melody I may have it at like 75% mix, just so it won't duck as hard, while on the vocals maybe something like 50%, just so we can still hear them properly. So I don't know, let's set it to 69 because funny number. But yeah, something like this should do. Although I am gonna add an EQ on the kick and slightly boost the low frequencies and maybe slightly turn down the higher frequencies, because I want you to mostly feel the kick and not necessarily like full on hear it. Like you need to hear it on a phone or like cheaper speakers, but if you're wearing like proper headphones or, you know, AirPods or whatever, the kick should mostly be felt in this case, or at least that's my opinion. So the naked kick sounds like this. And I feel like this is a pretty solid EQ. Dirty, quick, but, you know, solid. Then I'm gonna add a slight reverb on the snares, just because, you know, while it's still mostly funk, you know, having a slight reverb trail on the snares doesn't hurt. And this is pretty much it with the drums. Now, obviously the 808 could be a bit more boomy, so what I'm gonna do is add my favorite plugin, which is NANI, and I genuinely use it the most on distortion, specifically on 808s. I'm gonna disable the auto button and then double click the output to make sure that it's on 0, and then I'm gonna set it to orange because that's like my favorite distortion type, and then just slightly increase the drive by like 4 decibels and then the color. now I'm gonna EQ the 808 just a bit so we can, you know, counter some frequencies that we don't want, and then accentuate some other frequencies that we want to be more prominent. Let's get rid of some of the mid frequencies. Something like this should do just fine. It sounds pretty clean. Sadly, this 808 specifically doesn't have too many frequencies in the high range. Above 1K, it's pretty much empty, so raising this the fuck up doesn't do anything. Although what we could do as well would be to have a secondary 808. So I don't know, let's grab one that's a bit more rumbly, more in your face. Like this one, and then I'm just gonna link it to a new track just so we get full control over it as well. And I'm also gonna be grabbing basically the mixer preset from our main 808 onto this one. Although I'm just gonna drag the low end frequencies all the way to the right so we get no bass from this one, just the rumble. Copy the notes and then paste them, and now let's listen to just this one. Also, don't forget to envelope it and then cut self. So low cut all the way like this. Maybe actually let's just default it and now low cut it. Although this 808 is a bit heavy, so it's kind of sucking the other frequencies. So maybe turn down the bass a little bit more. By the way, don't do these kind of EQs. This is like really dirty and really like quick. Try not to do these, but sometimes you kind of have. Now let's see how it sounds like with everything else. You can definitely tell that it's adding some higher frequencies and it's giving it a bit of a texture, I guess. It doesn't sound as empty and as, I guess, bland. We could also add a chorus on it just to kind of give it some spice without it affecting the mix. I'm gonna solo it and then I'm gonna play with it. So it seems like a default chorus with like 180-degree stereo knob thingy with the mix level to like 60% sounds just fine. Now, if we play both of them at the same time, it sounds a bit more, you know, like spaceship-ish, kind of like it has a really specific feel to it, you know? Although we did add the chorus, now I'm gonna add another EQ just to kind of turn down some of the mid frequencies because the chorus creates some new frequencies and I want to balance them out a bit. Now, let's add some variation on the 808s and we're mostly done. What I was hearing basically while I was listening to this was something like this. So I like the second ones, like I really like them. Although this, specifically with the higher 808, it sounds a bit too fast, like the way it hits, it sounds kind of sudden. So we may as well use this, you know, to our advantage. I'm also gonna try some different variations in the melody just so it won't stay just on C because it sounds boring. So I'm gonna do that and I'll be back once I got them done because this may take a bit. Okay, so it didn't take me too much, but I think I've got them done and I honestly really like the way it sounds like. So here it is. It's pretty simple, it does get repetitive, but then again you could always make the pattern unique and then just slightly change it or whatever. This is, as I said, the basics. What I'm also gonna do before arranging it is add a slight, I guess, chorus or flanger on the hi-hats, just so it kind of creates a variation, I suppose, like a really subtle one, but just something so it won't stay the same thing. So I'm gonna add flanger and then solo this. I've also added some extra crashes / open hats, which sound like this. Now it's time to arrange this, and it's going to be really simple. So just select your main pattern and then click on this, split by channel, get rid of these, click on the first one, shift click on the last one, and that's it. Control B, Control B, Control B, and there you have it. Now it's really up to you how you want it to start, how you want it to end, how whatever bridge section you want to do. But this is just the basic idea for, you know, house funk, which is really simple, by the way, once again. So let's just like pretend that I'm doing a slight intro. I will be adding a fruity balance if I can find it, and this is going to be our volume automation, I guess. So just copy the balance, copy the value, sorry, for the first one, and then paste it whatever, paste value, and then automation. Also, when there are no drums, you could always just create automation clip for the enable/disable on the kickstart, or you know, whatever sidechaining you're using, just so it won't sound unnecessarily bouncy, I guess. Okay, future Gunsoww here. I completely forgot about the cowbell and I couldn't forgive myself for not doing it, so I'm gonna do it now. But yeah, the cowbell. So the cowbell in House Phonk isn't really complicated. It's really simple actually. Probably even more simpler, it's easy. All you gotta do is just find those 4 notes, those 4 perfect notes that fit in with your main melody. So I'm just gonna drag all of these down, carefully move my fruity dance pet as to not hurt it, and I'm gonna create a new pattern called bells, and I'm gonna use although I am gonna add a tuner on it if I do have one, just so I can see the exact pitch of it. It's on C, but it goes up 41 cents, meaning I gotta pitch it down 41 cents ish. And now it's roughly on C. So I'm just gonna solo the melody and the cowbell. That way I can hear how they sound like together, because these are the main things that need to work together in this case. So a melody like this sounds perfectly fine. You can also have it more active, like a full-on 4/4 melody. I honestly like this one, but for the sake of the video, I'm also gonna make a second one. And I'm just gonna copy this melody and time adjust it so it fits on, you know, 4/4. You know what I mean? So you can either have it, you know, I guess standard pattern. Just for the sake of it, I'm gonna place both and then, you know, switch in between them just to see how it sounds like, I guess. Although I honestly prefer it the first way, so I'm just gonna delete, you know, the 4/4 one and just, you know, duplicate this. And let's see how it sounds like with the kickstart as well, just to, you know, for shiggles. Pretty good. So I'm just gonna play this out, and then past me is gonna continue with the outro. And he may tell you that he didn't use the cowbell, which is now a lie. But of course, before playing this, I do have to add my outro, which is my thing. Back off. Here's the beat. And there you have it. This is basically how you make House Phonk. It's simple. I mean, then again, this is like just the basics, just like how to 4/4 kick snare, you know, things. I said that I was gonna use cowbells, but I completely forgot. That's on me. But that's about it with this video. I don't know when I'm gonna upload the next one. Maybe soon. I don't know. If you guys want to hate on me, you could do it in the comments. And yeah, it was your boy Gunsoww, and I'll see you guys sometimes. Peace.